We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, as is our custom, return the floor over to guests who want to address the board. And so who, if any of you would like to say something?
And this is Linda and Dale.
Okay, hi Dale.
And I guess we're going to go first. And then I think Bob Algrim will join in, and then, or yeah, Bob Volk, and then Callisto will join in.
Okay, fine.
So Dan and members of the board, Linda and I, along with several Water Wells Road and Oak Ridge residents, wish to strongly object to what we consider will become a serious violation of the town of Alfred zoning law. There will be residents of Water Wells Road and Oak Ridge who will speak to you later, but I would like to give you a short history of this illegal trailer park. Mary and Richard Giles of Hornell, New York, purchased property across from residents owned by Linda and me on Water Wells Road. In the late 1960s, there was enacted a new zoning law which listed the property as being in an R1 district. The late afternoon and evening before this law went into effect, there started arriving 6 or 7 trailers that were just randomly placed on the property. The trailers were not hooked up to utilities or placed in their final location. This egregious act to circumvent the rule of law is an insult to the residents of Water Wells Road and the town of Alfred. Paul Miller, who owned the house now owned by Callista McBride, Linda and I vehemently complained to the town board without any help to resolve this issue. Later, the Giles family made application to the town for variance so they could add more trailers. This hearing was well attended by Water Wells Road residents, and all objected. The appeals committee refused this request by Richard and Mary Giles. Linda and I could not have imagined the ordeal we would go through during the following years. At least 4 students per trailer, several cars per trailer, weekend parties that went on into the early mornings, groups of students walking up from both campuses, numbering in the dozens. At times, beer trucks showing up on this property and unloading kegs of beer. Unbelievably loud and unrelenting music with profanity-laced yelling. If I called the Giles family, it was always my fault. We even received a letter from Mary Giles stating our property was a neighborhood eyesore. A lot of activity went on this premises, which required the intervention of the state police. The most sinful of all crimes in any civilization occurred when there was a homicide by knife committed in this trailer park. After Richard Giles passed away, the property slowly degraded. The lawn was seldom mowed. And the residents slowly disappeared. About 3 years ago, the last tenant had left the trailers. Last year, the residents of the house moved, and there have been no inhabitants left at this property. The lawn is rarely mowed. We respectfully request the town of Alfred Town Board take strong affirmative action to prevent this trailer from again housing residents. These trailers detract from the efforts of neighbors who take pride in their property, maintaining it properly, and being neighborly to each other. The trailers are a cancer on Water Wells Road. If habitation of these trailers is allowed, we feel that the town of Alfred has lost control. We ask that the town attorney become actively and intimately involved in this issue before it is too late. We also request the trailers on this property be declared abandoned by the town of Alfred as stated in the zoning law, prohibiting any use as a residence in the future. For over 50 years, this mobile home park has been in violation of zoning law, and it's time to end this use of the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the history of this property from any member.
Okay, Dale, thank you for that history because you've experienced some historical facts the others, at least myself, are not aware of. I would like to give everyone a chance to speak first.
Sure.
So I'm going to go to
Bob.
whoever wants to speak next.
Bob Volk will be the next one.
Okay. What we have here is a summary of what we have learned since we learned that the property had been sold. It goes like this. I have more copies of this. I think just about everybody has ended up with one at this point. But if anyone would like a copy, I will give you my email at the end of this if you're ready to write it down. What happened was I stopped to make contact with Callista and Ryan one day, and Callista came out and said the trailers had been sold, and she believed it was for commercial purposes. So I happened to see Dan after that, and I asked him if he knew about the trailers, and he said that the realtor had stopped down when the trailers were listed and learned what the zoning circumstance was. So I went to the realtor and checked with her, and she said that when the trailers were sold, the new buyer was informed of the zoning circumstance. I didn't find out then, but then I later found out that she had actually put it into the contract for the trailer sale. So that she had done the right job and done it the right way. Then Dale saw someone working there after the sale had been closed, and he went over to inquire. He met a young man named Jose and was told that they were going to fix up the trailers and rent them. When I asked the realtor who had purchased it, she answered that it was no one that we would know because they were from down near New York City. Dale contacted Dan Acton, and it was planned to send the zoning inspector with a notice ultimately for May 9th. I revisited the realtor and learned that there had been a rental lease on one trailer for a maintenance person to live there who would work off the rent by performing maintenance. None of the neighbors ever saw anyone living there in the last year or two. We do not know the date and term of the lease, and if the trailer rented had fallen into disuse for a year before it was leased. But we have not seen anybody there. The maintenance trailer leased was directly with Mrs. Giles, so we have no immediate access to that. On the way home, after talking with the realtor, I saw someone working at the trailers and went right over to make contact. I also met Jose that Dale had talked to and asked him if he were the new answer, and he answered yes. After some chat, I asked, "So are you going to pull the trailers out and build a house?" The answer was indefinite. So he hitched after telling Dan that he was going to fix them up and sell them. No longer saying the trailers were going to be rented or saying specifically what they were going to do. When I commented that the trailers were a non-conforming use, Jose said something about that being something for the lawyers. I can't remember the exact words, but that was the meaning. I told Supervisor Acton by phone about all that had been learned, and Dan reiterated that the zoning inspector would post a notice over the weekend of May 8th and 9th. Dale learned from the town clerk that the sale of the property had been recorded and that the purchaser of record was an LLC, Limited Liability Corporation from Miami, Florida. This means that the buyers formed a limited corporation in which to operate their real estate business. Jose had told me that they had decided to get into the real estate business in order to get out of the high price trap of the city where everything was so expensive. I feel that they found a cheap piece of property and bought it because Marion was not able to sell it anywhere near the assessed value because it had fallen into disuse and disrepair so badly over the last few years. On Sunday, May 9th, the zoning inspector posted a sign on the mailboxes that the trailers were not to be occupied. The sign noted the relevant sections of the law. On Monday, May 10th, work continued on the trailers and still continues. I saw someone there today. My summary is simply that the property has been sold, evidently at fire sale price, much below assessed value. The new buyer appears to be ready to violate the zoning. Notice has been given by the town not to be occupied. The proverbial ball is now in the new owner's court since notice has been given. We will continue to watch and keep everyone informed. The buyer must not be allowed to violate our zoning laws.
Thank you, Bob, for the history and for all of your legwork in digging out the chronology of how we got where we are. Would anybody else like to say something about this topic?
If I may, I have some background working with Bob and Dale and Linda about what has happened and the environmental impact we're looking at. I'm going to consult notes, so I apologize if I don't make eye contact with you during this. But these are some of the things that I've been able to come up with that I really think we need to tell you. First and foremost, I've done just a very cursory look at Health and Human Services, federal and state guidelines and laws, housing and urban development, and environmental health and safety rules and laws. The language of those laws speak of uninhabitable conditions, and they speak of dangerous conditions. They speak of water source problems, which we know was a past problem. And I do believe that since I did not live here then, others can attest to this, that there were placards put up about this because of water source problems. I believe it's an open spring. Most of us are on wells. I'm on a well on this side of the property from them. I believe at one time, a lot of people were using springs, but then it was deemed not an acceptable water source, especially for this volume of people that lived up there at one time. There are questions about sewer, electrical, heating. When they advertised on the MLS, and I can give you all the pertinent data on this and PDFs of files if you need them at some point, but I'm just going to encapsulate as much as possible so I don't run on, that all of these trailers were listed with their dates. Now, let me say, before I give you the dates of these trailers, there are 7 of them, that prior to 1971, most manufactured home receptacles and wiring were done with aluminum and copper clad wire. Let me give you the dates of these trailers. 1962, 1966, 1965, 1968, 1969, 1970, and 1971. So all of these trailers, fall within the guidelines of uninhabitable because of electrical service. Secondarily, most trailers manufactured before 1971, and I can give you data if you need it, were also manufactured with asbestos in ceiling tile. They were also manufactured with lead in paint. They have gone into these trailers in the last so many weeks that we have all been trying to move forward to stop it, and rip out a great deal of garbage, and ripped out, from what we can tell, construction waste, thrown it next to the trailers. There was no assessment abatement plan, falling all within Health and Human Services regulations and laws and New York state law. And please forgive my ignorance of your local law. I did not drill down that far because I knew that there were others in this group who had more of a knowledge of that than I do. And I'm not an engineer, but I can read well. And there's a couple of other things I need to point out about this from the standpoint of Health and Human Services. And if you have it, I have legal drone footage captured showing you what has been torn out and thrown to the side. Now, much of that may have already been taken away. I did not feel it appropriate for me to keep sending a drone up and looking and taking footage, because I'm a neighbor and I am not somebody who distrusts the people that I live around, but I certainly distrust what I see going on next door. If there was no asbestos abatement, if there was no lead abatement, we are now looking at issues that can do these breaking points. I'll stop in just a moment, I promise you. You have to worry, and especially under New York State Real Property Law, Section 233, the question of habitability and safety, about the warranty of habitability, which has not been honored in any of what we've seen going on here. The law is very straight about mobile homes and the use of mobile homes, the renting of mobile homes, or the selling of mobile homes, about this concept of safety and habitability. The other last thing, let me tell you, if you also know lead in the water systems or lead-based paint on painted surfaces that has been allowed to now be ripped out, laid out, asbestos abatement nor an asbestos abatement plan, if these trailers are previous to 1971, which they all are, that we're now looking at perhaps an environmental hazard to drinking water and to public systems. I have a lot of documentation. I have a lot of written things. If you would like me to bundle it up and send it to you, I'd be happy to do that. But I really am concerned about what we're talking about. And thank you. It's nice to meet all of you. I've just become a member of your community within the last 3 years. I commuted for almost 20 years here, and it has been a pleasure and an honor to be part of this community.
Thank you, Callista. That's a lot of good information. We were aware of some of that, some we were not aware of, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. Are there other people who would like to address this issue?
I would if it's okay.
Sure.
Hi, this is Jen. Again, I live on Oak Ridge Lane East. I just want to start by thanking my fellow residents. My goodness, I'm so lucky to live in a place with such smart and caring people. So thank you very much. I don't have as formal of something written. I'd like to just speak about living here the last 12 years. And this isn't the first time I've attended a board meeting regarding these structures. After the homicide, several of us came to a town board meeting to try and understand why the trailers were there. We were, told that this is college students and this is college student life. And I guess as a member of the town, I'd like to say that, sorry there. Did I go out there? Sorry. That part of why I live in the town and moved from the village is because we're here to live a more quiet life, a life where, partying and hanging out isn't really why we moved here. We all moved to have some space and quiet and to be more country living. That's what the town of Alfred has given us. When the place was inhabited, you could have a middle finger thrown up at you, rocks thrown at your car driving by the residents of the main house. You could have obviously parties into the evening, which were difficult when you're raising a family and having young kids around. And then obviously the homicide that happened there. So, I just would like this board to know that this isn't the first time I've come. I know that several residents have come, sorry about that, several times, but I am concerned. I'm asking this board to please follow the rules of the town board and to please take action on this. And once again, I'm just so proud to be a resident and to have my neighbors. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jen. Anybody else?
I'll pipe up with a few notes. I'm Keith Gregory. I live just next to the trailers. A little bit of history is Hope and I raised our kids for 17 years on South Main Street in Alfred, and then wanted to get just outside the village. We wanted to make our continue living in Alfred, but we wanted to be outside so I could have my toys, lawnmowers and stuff like that. And we found this place, but before we got this place from the Brookses, we were dealing with Dick and Marion Giles to buy that place. And if we'd gotten it, we would have, of course, gotten rid of the trailers and fixed up the old house, which is something that we've done for the last 40 years together, is fix up old houses. And we love it here too. And neighbors and saying hi and waving to everybody is a wonderful thing. Some notes. Dale mentioned that those trailers are a cancer on Waterwells Road. Those trailers are a cancer on the whole town, folks, I think. Bob said that in talking with Jose said, well, it's something for lawyers. Apparently they have discussed this, whether he is a purchaser or just working for the people who purchased the property. Apparently they have discussed, they're aware, they have to be aware of the problems with the property they bought. And they've already spoken of fighting it. They're not going to lay down. With that in mind, I know the town is watching out for us and watching their budgets, and that they have to pay a lawyer sometimes to go to bat for us. And Dan and board members, don't wait too long. If the time comes where we need legal advice, and do it. And if you have to raise our taxes, or if you have to dun each one of us who's on this call a few $100s in order to get that done, let's do it right. Let's do it right ahead of time, or in time. Don't be afraid to do that, please. We'd hate to lose the fight because we were tripping over, a few dollars. What they're doing down there is very odd to me. They're stripping the trailers out. They're hauling out paneling and all of that junk, and whether there's asbestos in it or not, you cannot strip out that stuff and rehab those trailers for future rental and ever make your money back. So I don't understand what they're doing. They're stripping the trailers out as if they're going to load up the trailers themselves. That would be the first step you'd take. If you were going to take out a trailer, you'd strip the inside, then maybe you'd strip the copper if you wanted to take that out. And then you'd strip off the outside of the aluminum. Then you'd crush all of those 2x2 studs that make up the structure of the thing. And then you'd take the main I-beams that form the foundation of the thing and sell those for scrap. But the first step in demolishing those trailers would be exactly what they're doing. What they're doing is not the first step you would take if you were going to rehab those trailers, unless you're crazy on spending money that you'd never get a payback on. So anyway, I'm very puzzled by what they're doing. The water, spring water, when it's rented, they've been shut down by the county as of over a year ago. The chlorinator was malfunctioning, has been malfunctioning for a long time. And it has to have a chlorinator, it has to have a functioning chlorinator. That chlorinator has not been properly functioning. They were finally shut off for the water supply by the county. And really, a homicide? A homicide? Dale has mentioned to me that when he was with the troop, he made a call or two over there for drugs. So drugs, homicides, parties. We have to stay on top of this, folks, and it's wonderful to see everybody here at this meeting. Let's continue and see this through, whatever it takes. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. Anybody else?
I would like to speak on a different issue.
Pardon me?
Hi, my name's Kristen Papo, and I'd like to speak on a different issue.
And I would like to hear what you have to say, Kristen, but I want to take this issue first.
Okay, great.
Does anybody else want to address the water wells trailers? Okay, a couple things I can say. I think the town has been proactive in this since we first learned it was for sale. We made it clear to Hunt Realty that this was a non-conforming use because they had been vacant for more than a year. It's closer to 3 years now. The posting that our code enforcement officer put up indicates that these cannot be occupied until they get a certificate of occupancy. They can't get that because they're non-conforming use. Now, at this point, what they do over there, I don't know if we have any role in what their current activities are, whether they're trying to rehab these, tear them down, take them out, I don't know. But I'm going to contact our town attorney and see what he says would be our role now at this time. And the other thing is, I'm not sure who to contact. Maybe based on what Callista indicated, we should contact the DEC in terms of potential environmental hazard because of what they're doing. So those are two things that I think would be appropriate for the town board to do at this point. And I'll see that we do that. Well, I don't know if there's anything else right now that we should be doing, but we're open to suggestions. If you have anything subsequent to this meeting, please let us hear about it. Okay, anything else before we go to another topic? I want to thank all the residents of water wells and adjacent properties for all of your good work, and to Bob and Dale for their sleuthing around to get as much background as they presented. Okay, that being the case, Kristen, I think you want to address the board. So the floor or the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. My name's Kristen Papo, and I live at 4723 McAndrews Road, right at the Y, where McAndrews and Pingree split. We've lived here for 7 years, and we absolutely love our home and the community. We have been very concerned with the proposed 100 megawatt, 969 acre solar installation, which is, I have learned that the property directly across the street and going south of us is now also a contract's been given to the landowner to lease additional property. So he is deliberating at this time, but we are very close to being surrounded on 70–80% of our sides by this solar installation. I am a proponent of solar and renewable energy. If you've driven up on top of McAndrews, you'll see that we have a solar array. And I'm happy to say that I drive a plug-in Prius, and most days I can say that I commute directly from the power of the sun. However, I am deeply concerned about the scale of this project. And I did write an email to you all a week or so ago with a series of questions around environmental impacts, quality of life impacts, and impacts on our community. Thank you, Dan, for your response, where you affirmed that we will be looking at intervenor funding in order to assess the true impact of this project, and also making me aware of 94S and the process. I have since that time become aware of NYSERDA's solar payment in lieu of taxes program. This allows the town to make a decision of whether they will opt out of this NYSERDA program and assess the true taxes on the installation, which could also impact taxes that I would need to pay on our solar panels, which I am willing to do, or to establish a solar payment in lieu of taxes, which the town can assess. And that can go be any amount up to the full amount that installation would have had to pay for taxes. So either way, you can get a large payment from the multinational corporation that is intending to put this site in. If you look at the scope of this project and the fact that they need to secure these panels to bedrock and all the work that will need to be done, this project will have a significant impact on the community, on the roads, on many of the facilities, and during the time in which they are building it. Unfortunately, the folks who will benefit from this largely are a corporation that is interested in selling carbon credits, and individuals like myself that will have our property values negatively impacted by this project. I think at this time we should be focusing on smaller installations that actually meet the needs of our community, rather than the fact that since land can be leased exceedingly cheaply here, that we have these large corporations coming and putting these huge facilities. This facility, based on my calculation, would probably service 10,000 homes comparatively to our installation here. So I'm asking the town to gather a bunch of information from Northland Power, which would include the project applicant providing a complete financial statement and report on the project, outlining all aspects of the project value, project costs, status of land holdings versus leasing, anticipated production, electricity and value, revenues, anticipated value of carbon credits. This should be provided immediately to the town so that the town can evaluate whether they would opt out of the pilot program or assess a solar payment. It's very important that the town assess this and it not be handed over to the IDA, and that we truly recognize the cost of this facility on our environment, on our town, and on the quality of our lives. Thank you for allowing me to share my concerns. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. And this project is new. The legislation is new. We're all trying to come up the learning curve. I'm just recently aware of this opt-out option for the pilot program, so that's something we have to investigate. Our understanding is that even though we have a solar law in the town, the new legislation passed in 2021 supersedes our authority for permitting solar installations greater than 25 megawatts. So I don't know exactly what role we will play in that. We have to find out more about it.
So we did meet some biologists who were studying the vernal pools on the property several days ago, and they work on a lot of these projects, and they informed us that the company has to follow. We may not be able to stop the permit, but the company does need to follow any regulations that the town has put in relevant to solar power.
Yes, and thank you, Kristen. And I had read something to the fact that they have to report on compliance with local law.
Mhm.
It doesn't say that they must comply, it just says they have to report on compliance. So we still have to find out whether that's a controlling factor or not. But again, this is all new. We're coming up the learning curve, and we're going to do our best to do what's right for the town.
Well, I truly appreciate the effort you're making to learn about this. I recognize what a steep learning curve it is. I've been reading about the new legislation 94S, and there's a lot to digest.
Yes. And thank you for your input, Kristen. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, anything else from the community before we move forward with our regular agenda? Okay. Everybody received an electronic copy of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you, Bill. Second?
I'll second.
Ian, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. You got a copy, electronic copy of the police report. It looked like they were busy in April. It looked fairly routine. Any comments about the APD report? Okay. I did not receive a code enforcement officer's report. Let me just check my email and see if I got one late. I did not. Okay. You got a copy of the monthly report. All the line items look good, except the cost of salt and sand looked like we got hammered pretty well this year. So we may have to make some budget adjustments there. Any comments on the monthly financials? Okay. The general abstracts. Everybody got a copy of those?
My lights just flashed a couple of times. I wonder if we need that solar power back in here or something.
Let's hope they stay on, Keith.
Okay.
I'm looking over the abstracts. Doesn't look like there's anything unusual. And I'm going to look at the highway at the same time and see if we've got anything we need to talk about there. Anybody have any questions
Is there,
on the highway or the general abstracts?
No.
is the national fuel bill, is that an asterisk next to the line 45? Jan could probably explain when she comes in, but
I'm
guessing it was because it was 2 months. Over next to the total,
Does say
the
2 months, yeah.
418.72.
Yep.
Do you want to hold that one off until we get some feedback on it?
I'm good with it if everyone else is. That probably aligns with the
Yeah,
usual
for 2 months, that's probably not unreasonable. Any other comments on the abstracts? Is there a motion that we pay both the general and the town highway abstracts?
So moved.
Thank you, Matthew.
Second.
Second, Wendy?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right. Bob, highway report.
We serviced the excavator, loader, rollers, and the Kubota tractor, changed the tires on the 14 Mac. Worked on the dump unit on the 5500, put new tines on the York rake. That's for the equipment. We pulled shoulders on East Valley, replaced the driveway pipe on East Valley and ditch. We hauled some gravel for the village, filled potholes, washed and oiled the trucks, fixed the driveway pipe on Lynch Road, put a pipe on Randolph, hauled 1/8 to the shop for the stolen oil. The roads that I'm gonna stolen oil this year, and we broomed Burdick, Randolph, Barber Lane, and Davis.
Did I see you guys out salting for the village too?
Yeah, when we had that last little storm, they
Yeah.
didn't have no trucks, so I had the 5,500 already suited up, so I let them borrow it.
Okay, I thought I saw it going around. I figured that was what happened.
Yeah.
One thing we have to do, Bob, is we have to approve the CHIPS expenditures on the roads that you're going to be working on this year. So which roads are you using CHIPS money on?
It's gonna be the same ones I did last year, Burdick, Randolph, what is it, Barber Lane. And then I'm gonna use the chips, some of the, whatever I got left over, I'm gonna start fixing the shoulders on East Valley from Fisher Road to Burdick,
All right, so we've got 4 roads then that you
pretty
may
much.
be
Yeah.
using CHIPS money on.
Yes,
Okay, so I'm moving a motion that we spend our CHIPS money on those 4 roads. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Okay. In general, the equipment's in good shape or holding together, Bob?
yes, sir.
All right. Any questions for Bob? Okay, Bob, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, supervisors report. So we have to, yeah, question? Okay, we have to resolve to be the lead agency for the seeker on the special use permit for Palmer's gravel mine. Now, for the benefit of the board in general, everybody should understand that the ZBA is in charge and has the authority to issue the special use permit for this mine. The town board, acting as the lead agent, will determine the significance or make a significance determination for the seeker that's required for a special use permit. So that's why the town board's doing what we're going to do right now. Is that clear to everyone? This is new to us as a board going through this on a special use permit. So this is another thing that we've been going up the learning curve on. I think Freddie, the ZBA, will concur that that's been a climb. Okay, so given the fact that we've determined that this is an unlisted action, this is with regard to the seeker, it will not be a coordinated review. We have reviewed part 1 of the application as being complete. Part 2 of the seeker, or part 1 of the seeker is complete. Part 2 of the seeker is available for comment. The public comment period is still open. And based on that, I'd move that we resolve to become the lead agency for this seeker declaration. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. I hope there's some questions because this is all new stuff. And
Dan, what about the neighbors to the mine? Do they have a say in whether it goes in or not, or continues?
okay, yes, everyone within the 200 feet of the boundary of the property was contacted. The local residents. We had a public hearing, and we have also contacted various agencies such as National Fuel, DEC, the railroad, DOT, and SHPO. And I think we've gotten a couple replies back already, asking for more information. So yes, the locals, their concerns are taken into account by the ZBA in making their decision of whether or not to grant the permit.
Dan,
Ready?
I think it needs to be understood that the town law, the town zoning law permits gravel and sand extraction in the town. So the role of a special use permit is to write conditions that would apply to that permit.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct. Well stated. Are there any other comments? At this point, if this resolution passes, then we'll simply be waiting for any more feedback from these other agencies. And then the ZBA would move forward to make their decision based on what we decide in terms of our declaration of significance. I think that's what's happening here.
So how does the declaration of significance come together? I understand there'll be information from various sources.
Right.
Then what?
Then it is our judgment as to whether or not, based on part 2 of the seeker document and information we get from these other agencies and neighbors, whether this would have no significant impact, minimal impact, or significant impact. And we just have to document why we make that decision, whatever it happens to be. So my understanding is it's our judgment. That's the best I can give you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is this document is, the seeker document is just kept on file.
Dan, with regard to the bonded amount and the
Yes.
and the provisions surrounding
So
reclamation, is
good
that all?
question. Yeah, that will be determined by the ZBA, but I'll go ahead and respond to that, Freddie, unless you want to. So the law requires that security be assured for reclamation. It doesn't say how. What we found out is that getting a bond for something like this is prohibitively expensive if you can get it. So what we did was Freddie had contacted the DEC. They recommend a $5,000 per acre security for reclamation. So what we're going to do, and I spoke with Community Bank to see what can be worked out, and I also ran this past our town attorney. And so what would happen is we would require Mr. Palmer, if this permit is issued, to write a check to the town basically for $5,000 per acre. And then we would take that money and go to the bank and buy a CD, let's say a 3-year CD, in the name of the town. And we would hold that. When it matures, we'd roll it over, and it would go on in perpetuity until the time that this gravel mine is shut down, is no longer in operation, and that money would be used for the reclamation. Now, there's one thing that we've added to that, and that is when the CD is renewed, it has to be renewed at an amount that represents compound interest of, I'm going to suggest that the inflation rate, whatever the inflation rate is. So let's say it goes 3 years and 2% inflation on $5,000 over 3 years compounded turns out to be like $300. So when we roll it over, Mr. Palmer would have to write us another check for $300 if it was a $5,000 amount, so that then we'd roll over the CD for $5,300, just so we keep up with inflation. Because if we don't, in 25 years, prices double at 3%. So we could have an amount that wouldn't do much in 25 years. So putting an inflation adjustment in there seems like a reasonable thing to do. And again, I ran that past our town attorney. He said, yeah, just have it notarized and make sure it's clear that, you know, he doesn't get this back until the reclamation is completed. And the thing is, we don't even know who may own it in 25 years. Could be somebody else.
So the, so the size of the lot now is 1¼ acres,
Right.
and
He
that's
has-
smaller than it was, and it's also, I think, smaller than the town law calls for. I think there's somewhere it says 10 acres.
I can't respond to
I
that.
believe, Dan, I believe.
He has 10
at
acres,
10
but he doesn't have to mine it all.
If it's above 10 acres, then it's subject to other laws.
Yeah,
Got
he
it.
just
Okay,
has to
that's where
have
that comes
10
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When
good
was
point.
it decreased from the initial 5 or 4 acres that's listed in the short, in the part
He
one?
he decided that given what he had there, at the rate he's taking it out, he wouldn't need, I mean, that would take him many years just to mine that 1 acre, because he's cutting into a cliff.
Okay.
Okay, so that 1¼ acres seems reasonable. It just seemed like, I guess I was wondering if it was decreased just so that the bond would be less. That's just,
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
under
Well,
the
that's
same
part of the
Yeah,
suspicion.
consideration.
Absolutely.
Well, and not to get in too far into the weeds, but you know, if you start with 1 acre and a gravel mine, you know, moves out, but you're not reclaiming the acre that you started on as you move away from it, there has to be some way to account for the increased footprint of that over time and making
Well-
sure the money is there to reclaim the whole thing.
That's a good point.
Yes.
And one thing I suggested is, I know people who have drones. You just run a drone over there, take a picture at the beginning of the year, take one at the end of next year. It should be fairly easy to monitor.
And if I may, Mr. Palmer understands that if he exceeds an 1¼ acre, that he'll have to go through the whole process again of applying for a special use permit, and there'll be an additional surety amount required. So he understands if he exceeds this, he'll have to go past this, so. But he very definitely did it to reduce the amount of surety that was going to be required.
And Freddie, does that less than 10 acre value, does that have any impact on the state mining permit that he's required? to
It
hold
does
on?
as well, in that in extraction areas less than 10 acres, it doesn't cross the DEC threshold.
Okay,
So the conversation with the DEC was less than 10 acres or 1,000 tons per year. They're not interested in monitoring that. They were very helpful in advising, and they were aware of it, and they had spoken with Mr. Palmer in the past.
Mhm. And are
They
they
said-
still, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you go ahead.
With back to reclamation again, if it falls underneath the radar of DEC, does the mine owner still have to reclaim the property to the specification that is otherwise
We're-
used by DEC?
We're writing the conditions that's exactly what he'll have to do,
Yeah.
is
all right,
reclaim it to the DEC regulations.
Great.
I think it was the consensus of people involved in this, the ZBA and Dan and others, that it would be unfair if they didn't follow regulations that were applied to the quarry formerly known as Buffalo Crushed, new aggregate. And as far as reclamation criteria and also hours of operation. They've agreed that even though the town law allows him to work on Saturdays, he's curtailed those hours to stop at noon on Saturday. So he will be following the DEC. He'll be required to reclaim it to whatever DEC guidelines are in place at the time of reclamation.
Other questions about this? These are all good questions. I want to compliment Freddie and the ZBA. They've put a lot of time into this. And I think that working with Mr. Palmer, they've come up with conditions that are reasonable for the town and for the applicant. If there are no other questions, I'm going to call the question on this resolution to be the lead agency. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous? Okay, thank you all. Okay. There is something called a unified solar permit that Jan has made us aware of, and maybe others. And I'm wondering if it's something we should consider, not tonight to move on, but rather to have a special building permit for solar installations. And it seems that that entails a special solar permit fee. And I think Jan had run across one for another town that was substantial. Do you remember what that? No, okay, it was a minimum fee of $500. Okay, that wasn't too bad, but
It was 50 cents per kilowatt. Was that the one that Jan had mentioned? Yeah.
yeah. But then here's one, they're saying, I don't know, it could be up to $10,000. So I think this is something that we might want to look into. And so I'm just throwing it out there. I think we're going to have to get some more information. I don't know what the basis would be for determining the fee schedule. Like you got to have some rationale other than we want the money.
Dan, I just spoke with someone over at the town of Burns that is very involved in the solar project over there. And I will give you his name and phone number, and he will could be a very good source of reference and probably
Okay.
could tell you more about this.
Okay, good.
I did the quick math on that 50 cents a kilowatt. That's $50,000 for the Alfred Oaks project.
Mhm. It's a one-time deal though, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's,
But it would definitely provide a significant amount of funding if there was research needed on our side.
That would just be the permit application, just like we
Right.
charge a building permit application. This would just be for the solar
Mhm.
projects.
Does to go back to the pilot, and I don't know if this solar permit and the fees, Jan, did you get the sense that that stuff would fall within the confines of a host community agreement, or is it separate?
I think the fees could, but I also think that it's probably a separate schedule, just like the building permit. I
Yeah.
think it would be added on, like currently we have a schedule for a building permit based on cost of construction. And
Yep.
that was established by the state when we adopted the uniform building codes.
Mhm.
I would think we could add a solar fee onto there at, X, because I think, but again, this person that I talked to probably could give you a little more information on that. I
Mhm.
didn't have a chance to talk to him for very long, but he may be able to help us out on that a little more.
Yeah, okay. The timing seems fairly critical too, right? According to NYSERD, the pilot has to be at least in the works within 60 days of being notified of the project.
Well,
Is that true with the IDA?
you have to remember that they have not actually applied to us for a building permit for this project yet.
Yeah. But the
Right,
fact
and-
that they've communicated the project to the IDA, does that constitute the language in the NYSERDA site was fairly ambiguous. It didn't say anything about an application being filed. It was just the taxing entity was in, at the time that they were informed of the project, 60 days from then, it sounded like the pilot needed to be in the works.
I would assume that the starting date, the clock would start when they submit an application.
Oh, that'd be a good question for Craig, because the IDA is the one that negotiates the pilot. So I think Craig Clark could probably give you a better answer on that.
What about if we decided to opt out of that?
I don't know anything about how that would work. That's a great question. It's another thing we have to research. I didn't know until now that we had the option, that I thought the IDA, took care of that pilot, but it seems based on what people are saying that we could opt out of that. But I don't know if that's even true.
That would be huge if we could.
I don't
A
know.
huge option.
Jan?
Well, I want to be careful what I say. I don't know if you would want to. Negotiating a pilot is not an easy task. And the IDA is very experienced in it. So I would just make sure you know everything that's involved with it before you decide to do that. I didn't know you could opt out either. My discussion was that all pilots have to be negotiated through the IDA.
And I'm
I
not
could be
sure
wrong.
if it's the case with just these solar installations that are greater than 25 megawatts, or is that option for any solar installation? I don't think, well, this, like the one that's proposed by the Snyder gentleman, that wouldn't have a pilot because the IDA is not playing a role. So I guess it only.
It could have a pilot. I believe they are going to be contacting Craig.
Fred, you came on live with your video. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, it's my understanding that we're not sure whether IDA is involved in this at all. This may be a transaction directly between this company and the township and the state review board that's in place. And this is such a new board and a new process, but I have not had any indication that the IDA is involved in this, or that they have to be involved in this type of a payment in lieu of taxes. It may be a direct transaction between the company and the town in the purview of the siting board. So I wouldn't. I think you should contact Craig Clark, but I think you'll find that they're not involved in this, and they do not have to be involved for a pilot to be issued. You can, as a town, contract directly. And as I've got your attention, I would just like to suggest a scoping session or some type of a process whereby the public and interested parties can get you issues that need to be communicated to the installer, the project proposer, and the siting board. And this is the time, this is the window of opportunity to do that. You need to really, really organize what issues are it that you want to have looked at before you apply for the intervenor funding. And one of them is you need an independent appraiser to really tell you the truth about the impact of property values, the homes that are there nearby and nearby property values. You need an independent appraiser to do that, not one that they hire. or not their report that they give you when they file the application. There's several other issues that should be framed so that you give that to the company, and they've asked for it. They've asked you to communicate your concerns so that they can basically begin to take care of it in their application. So scoping at this point right now is extremely important, so that we know what the public wants to be looked at and what the town should be looking at. And you need to really look at the whole, as Kristen Popo, Dr. Popo had proposed. This is extremely important that you get the whole financial picture, the entire financial picture. And they won't give it to you, I don't think, unless you ask for it. And this whole project might be something that is, it warrants you knowing before you sign on a contractual agreement to give them a tax break, how much they're going to be realizing in revenue from this, and how much it's going to impact the community and the people with residences nearby. This is a huge thing. It's going to change 1,000 acres of a part of this township. And there's several other areas that need to be put into a scope and said, we want you to give us mitigating factors, or we want you to study this. We want your analysis.
Yeah, we have $100,000 in intervener funding to work with for things like this, right, Fred?
Exactly.
Yeah, any independent groups that formulate can also access those. Yes, there is funds that they'll have to set aside once they do a final application. Yeah.
I just did a quick Google and was reading the NYSERDA handout on the New York Solar Guidebook. And we do, as a local municipality, have the option to opt out of the tax exemption entirely or to negotiate our own pilot. The only thing that we can't do is make either choice based on the size of it. So if we opt out entirely, then even homeowner rooftop installations would be taxable. Or if we decide to do our own pilot, we can negotiate that directly.
I believe they have already been in touch with Craig.
Yeah, I spoke with Craig a week or two ago about the pilot. And in our discussion, he led me to believe that this is what they were going to do and that he was already aware of this now. But who knows? We'll have to get more information on this. And
I think this person I'm telling you about could probably handle all of this information for you.
okay.
Honestly, this is Kristen Papo again. I'm concerned about what the mission and the agenda of the IDA is versus the concerns of townsfolk. And so I would be very reticent to turn things over to IDA without a substantial review at the town level for those of us who are going to be impacted. And I think we'll all be impacted. One of my concerns is how much heat my solar panels put out in the summer, and probably about 1/10,000th of the size of what they're going to put in. How that's going to impact our microclimate. I think there's a lot of wetlands, a lot of wetland soils, vernal pools, all that sort of things up here on. And on top of that, we have one of the things they say is that, oh, well, you can graze sheep, and I raise sheep amongst these panels. Well, it's a lot of sheep for 1,000 acres. And we already have difficulty getting enough hay in the winter locally, and they're planning on taking over all of McAndrews meadows, which are farmed for hay, and taking, a great source of hay from our community out at a time that, people from Pennsylvania are coming up to buy hay here because they can't make enough. So they suggest that it can be integrated with agriculture without realizing that we need to continue to have our hay fields. And even aesthetically, I think the meadows are one of the most beautiful sites. Somebody else mentioned around the other concern with the trailer park about our quiet enjoyment of our area. I don't think we should be turning this over to the IDA. I think we should be, as community members and as adjacent property owners, very clear about all the issues that this brings up and what the true cost of this would be. And I don't necessarily, the payment in lieu of taxes could be as high as what the taxes would be. And that would be a way to avoid potentially creating a cost for small solar installations like ours, although I would be willing to pay the taxes on ours if it will make sure that the community is supported.
Yeah, you
Thank you,
don't,
Kristen.
you do not want to take the easy way out or the convenient way out. IDA is going to handle it for us and we don't have to worry about it. No, you don't want to go there, especially if you don't really have a report that clearly outlines what is it that they're building and how much is it worth, how much electricity is it going to produce, what is the projected market for that, what is the impact on the rest of the grid. All of those questions are part of a scoping process that you really need to put in place. And the community is obviously aware and they're ready to give you issues. And I think that you need to start pumping them for information before you make too many decisions. The increase in runoff from 1,000 acres of glass is astronomical. And they're going to say, well, it drips into the ground in between the panels. You need a hydrologist to really figure out how is it going to impact the runoff from 1,000 acres up there on Jericho Hill. And the other microclimate issues, the impact of the grid of dirty electricity coming from the inverters. Does each panel have its own inverter, or is there one huge mother inverter handling a whole bank of them? In any event, they need special filters that are extremely expensive and critical to not the grid with they're called harmonics or dirty electricity, which can affect all of the function of all of our equipment. And so there's an issue that an electrical engineer needs to pin down for us. So this scoping idea is essential and it should be happening now.
Okay, Fred, thank you. Those are all good points.
Only a few.
Okay. Pardon me?
It's only a few of them.
Okay. That's all I have until Catherine.
Chambers had a comment.
I came in kind of late, so I don't know if this is the right time to comment, but I do have a comment on the solar farms whenever that's appropriate.
Now's the time.
So I agree with the scoping need for scoping requirement. And I'm also concerned, and I've already reached out to some of my fellow fire people, but it seems to me that having battery storage and a solar farm of that size is a bigger risk from a fire perspective. And I believe we only have one water tanker truck. I don't know the right lingo, but I would hope that we would check out and see what our fire companies need to protect my home and Kristen's and everyone, Keith's, from a fire if it's began up here on windy Jericho Hill.
That's a good point, Catherine.
Thanks.
There is, the reason they're interested in the site is that there is 115 kV wires that actually kind of go between my house and Catherine's house. They're kind of between Kenyon and McAndrews, and the site is attractive for that reason. But that brings it right in the middle of the McAndrews Meadows, which are important farmland.
Okay, any other comments on the solar? These are all good points and they give us some things to work on.
One last comment about the opting out. Alfred Almond Central School District has already opted out.
Opted out of this project?
Of solar projects. When you opt out for solar wind energy systems. It's not a specific project, but they have already opted out. They opted out in 2018.
Do you know why?
No, I don't. It's public record that they had. There's 4 towns in the county that have, and several school districts.
And they opted out of renewable energy as a classification, or how's it?
Solar or wind, yes.
487.
Yep,
They
that
opted out-
487 opt out.
They opted out of the exemption that the state put in place. And I'm not sure if they can change what you decide as the township, because you are the taxing authority and the appraisal only happens at the town level.
Right.
So that's an interesting question that has to be answered.
Mhm.
And I emailed you about that today, but the bottom line is, and what's the county going to do? You know, are they also a partner in this decision-making about a pilot? So yeah, those things have to be worked out.
Yeah, there any taxing jurisdiction, so town, school, village can choose to opt out of the 487 from what I'm seeing in the handbook. But that's not, this property's not in the Alfred Alma School District, is it? It's in the Andover District?
No, it's in Alfred.
Well, it's in the town of Alfred, but is it in the Alfred Alma School District?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm guessing it
It's
might
in
be
both.
split.
It's both.
It's
It's
both.
both.
That's
It's
what I
both.
think.
Yeah.
I mean, we're actually Andover, but I think since this goes across Jericho Hill, I think there's areas down near Jericho Hill, Route 12, that would be in the Alfred system.
The
Yeah,
area
it's-
from my house is in Alfred Alma District.
Mhm.
The properties on County Route 12 that are included would be in Alfred District.
So it's both.
So are they actually already taxable then on that portion of it?
Good question.
Point.
We have a lot of questions to be answered, Matthew.
Yeah. That, I mean, that's a pretty big one right there that could already be in the works that I didn't know about.
Okay, any other comments on this?
Wendy, do you have the info on that opt out and what it was? And
I just pulled up. There's a listing of the exemptions of all those that have opted out by county is all. There's so
Okay.
much information. It's so easy to get lost in it.
yeah, I just wanted to see if it was the same, if it's the 487 or if it's something else.
Yeah, this is very specifically 487.
Okay. So that may have already provided a portion of the answer on this then.
Okay, anything else?
Kathy Chambers is coming again.
Catherine?
You're muted, Kathy.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So I was concerned when I read the article in the town board, the magazine that the board people get. I think it's called Town and Board or
Talk.
something. Anyway, and it talks about how the state can override our things, and you may have already discussed this. But my comment is that I would hope that we would do everything we could to maintain control of our own issues instead of letting it default to state rule.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Home rule is very important to maintain.
Anything else on solar? Okay, I don't have any other new business, but I do want us to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. But is there anything else to come before us at this time? What will happen as we go into executive session is that Fian will put everybody in the waiting room, right, Fian?
Right. Yep.
And then when we come out of executive session, you can rejoin.
May I just say thank you? I need to take care of some other things, and this is a good point for me to leave. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's good to meet all of you.
Thank you
If
for
you need
joining.
anything, just let me know, would you please, on the issues we've brought up.
Okay, sure
Okay.
thing.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
Thanks, Calista.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'd like to move, we go into executive session at 8:20 for personnel matters. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now
Yeah,
bringing back
resume.
anybody who's still around.
Resume the recording. We've got Freddie, Dick Smiths, and Catherine Chambers. Welcome back,
Okay.
everybody.
So coming out of executive session, I move that the town resolve to hire BBS Accounting Services as our bookkeeping service effective. Now, we should have talked about this. Effective July 2 or effective June 1?
No, July 5th.
July
Right.
5.
There's no, yeah,
Holiday
well,
weekend.
you know, I don't know now, Dan, because there was a transition period that they needed.
Right, I thought it was July 1st or June 1st.
Well, the transition is June 1st, but I'm just wondering if we're like hiring them as a consultant in June and,
No, I think that you're actually would be hiring them on June 1st, and then they would work with me for the transition. And I
okay,
That would make sense.
That was part of their
Okay.
fee.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I had worked into my analysis, a $2,500 transition. So we would hire them effective June 1 of 2021. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. And then you will contact them, Jan, accordingly?
Sure. Yep, I'll get hold of Justin tomorrow.
Excellent. Okay, I don't have anything else. Does anybody else on the board?
We have the code enforcement report.
Yes,
Oh,
I just
Oh.
sent it to you.
oh,
He
hang on.
texted me on my way back from Canistregan, said he just sent it.
Mhm. Getting his homework in right at the last minute.
Yeah, 6:55.
Always.
We
Oh,
caught
boy.
Jan out of the office on the one night.
So 708 Route 245. What?
That's the former Burdick Farm.
Oh, 244.
Yeah,
Does anybody know what that's zoned for? Is that business zoning or
business district.
walk-in cooler at Old Mill, boiler permit to ZBA? So we got another special use permit coming up. 5-acre solar field. Is that the one that, one of the ones that Justin Snyder's? Okay. Okay, any comments on his report?
What about drums, yard sale continuing, right?
When I emailed him last week, I said, please include the trailers and Crystal Drum in your report. As you can see here, there's nothing on Crystal Drum, so I have to get after him.
He told me when he gets back in the office next week, that's one of the first things he's gonna work on.
Good,
We'll see.
yeah. That's been going on since at least 2004 in the minutes.
I'm curious, Jan. He mentions issuing a stop work. If they're demolishing those trailers, do they have to have a permit for that?
They still need a building permit, I believe, because on our building permit application, one of the things you can check is demolition.
Okay.
And Steve said he's going back up there this weekend, right, Jan?
I
That's-
believe when he gets back in town, yes.
Yeah.
Coming week.
Okay. Well, that could be a headache for some period of time, but we'll just have to do what we need to do.
Do we
Okay.
know if this 5-acre solar field project is a third project? Because there was one originally on McHenry
Randolph.
Road.
I think he
Is
missed,
this
I think it's, I think he's talking about the Justin Snyder's, the 95 acre. I think he missed,
The one that was on
Mr. Ryan?
McHenry Valley got transferred to be on Randolph
correct?
And that we haven't heard anything about.
Okay, so this is,
This is a third one.
that's what I'm
Oh.
asking. Is this a
This
third
is-
one?
This is a third one. And
Three
there
if you
may be
include
would be
Northland.
a fourth one. Somebody's got ideas to have down on Route 21, so
Whereabouts on 21?
I don't know for sure. A guy called me a month or two ago and said they were looking into one, but I never got any more.
Does anybody know how large that dealer, new store gonna be? Anything about it?
I think it's
Small
about
dry
40 by
goods store.
60 or something. It was pretty good size.
What new store?
Byler's Dara
Oh.
Farm.
Yep.
Jen may have it right there, but your head
For,
disappeared, Jan.
Yeah, she has no head.
Head in the clouds.
He's into the wilds.
It's 48 by 28.
A 48 by 28.
Okay.
If anybody wants to see the plans, I have them.
I'm surprised that Buffalo Crush hasn't decided to put solar panels in the old Alfred Atlas pit.
Really?
It'd be,
Well, I'm trying to get the university to put their sports complex in.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing I'd like.
yeah.
Okay, is there anything else we need to talk about tonight? Okay, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn,
So
So
moved.
moved.
and I'll second it. Doesn't require a vote, right? All it requires is a second.
Correct.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you all.
Right.
Good night, all.
Night.
Take care.